moving right along to the main event here with Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis, who were originally scheduled to fight each other way back in November, I should say. And we're getting just the same odds, pretty much minus 430 for Curtis Blaydes here and plus 345. Now, it's not often that you see me do a little bit of a 180 on matchups. And this is a fight that I've done a bit of a 180 on matchups. If you guys remember when I was talking about this last time, I completely bought into the fact that, Curtis Blaydes is going to continue to take this guy down, and it's not going to matter because Derrick Lewis is just going to find his way back to his feet and then land that bomb of his. That is a lot more low percentage than I was making it sound at that point in time. And I believe I had bought a little bit too much into the Alexander Volkov performance that we got from Curtis Blaydes, where we saw him huffing and puffing in that 4th and 5th round. And you got to give a little bit more credit to Volkov there for making Blaydes work, not just just laying on his back. He was making Blaydes work, which is why Blaydes was so fatigued and gassed at the end of that fight. Now, with that a little bit more into perspective, I'm definitely on the Blaydes side now. I'm definitely on the Blaydes inside the distance side now, too, because I don't see how Derrick Lewis is going to be able to survive this fight for 5 rounds. Now, he's absolutely live to do his fuck it, let's get up jiu-jitsu style, where he's just like, I don't want to be on the ground anymore. I'm just going to turn to my belly, put my hands on the ground, get my knees going, and get back to the feet and throw 5 or 6 shots. If I knock you out, great. If not, I'm probably going to be too tired from spending myself in that combination, and you're going to take me down once again. That's what I'm expecting here from Curtis Blaydes in terms of getting this guy down continuously, and then racking up those significant strikes, racking up that ground and pound, and getting some sort of finish. Now, the contrarian take that I'm going to take here is going to be that I believe the Blaydes submission prop is a little bit more live than most people are making it seem. It's plus 900. For my opinion, I think it's worth a little bit of a shot. Now, the last time we saw Blaydes tapped was Mr. Daniel Cormier, the same type of level of wrestler that we're getting with Curtis Blaydes here. And if not, Curtis Blaydes being even more dominant, considering the size advantage that he had over Daniel Cormier and all that type of stuff. Curtis Blaydes is going to just be able to ragdoll Derrick Lewis a little bit easier here. I think it's going to come down to if, like Daniel Cormier, he couldn't ground and pound, get him out of there. Derrick Lewis was still moving around, trying to get out of bad positions, and he gave up his back, and in comes the choke from Daniel Cormier. Now, I know we don't have any submission victories on Curtis Blaydes' record, but you're dealing with a guy in Derrick Lewis who's really hard to put away. I'm trying to remember the last time he went out cold, and I think Sean Jordan or Matt Mitrione was one of the last guys to really truly do it that way. And then obviously it's going to be different coming from a ground and pound stance here. Curtis Blaydes is definitely very live for that. But I think a little bit of a sprinkle on that subline isn't too bad at plus 900. I could see an instance where he maybe goes for an arm triangle choke, or if Derrick Lewis gives up his back, he's just like, instead of raining down shots on this guy, I'll just try to get that neck and try to submit him that way too. It reminds me of Paul Craig versus Shogun Rua, where everybody's banging on the Paul Craig submission line and it TKOs him. Or who's the other one? Ovin St. Preux against Alonzo Benefield. Everybody's banging on the sub prop, but they go for the KO. And my line of thinking for that fight was, if Alonzo Benefield doesn't give up the submission, he could just go ground and pound him. And I think it works vice versa as well, too, with Curtis Blaydes, who could, if he doesn't get the successful ground and pound finish, maybe he finds the chin open, maybe he gets the arm triangle choke, whatever it is. But I think it's worth a little bit of a sprinkle, considering how dominant he should be on the ground here as well. I think he's going to have his way. Derrick Lewis's guard gets past so easily nowadays. You saw Alexei Olena get him down with relative ease. Just kept going for that scarf hold, pretty much shooting himself in the foot because that full mount was there for the taking. And I think that we'll see Curtis Blaydes get it relatively quickly as well too. I'm seeing a lot of people on the over 1.5, and this is not a fight that I personally want to have the over 1.5, because obviously you have those Derrick Lewis early bombs. And even if Curtis Blaydes gets this fight to the ground, maybe he's just pissed off that everybody's ragging on him for his Alexander Volkov fight, where he's just like, screw this, let me just go ham or ape shit and try to get this guy out there quicker. So I like the Blaydes. I like the Blaydes inside the distance. I believe the last time I saw that line, it was minus 175. Currently, it's sitting at Blaydes inside the distance is minus 170. So still, in my opinion, a great line. Way better than betting him at minus 430, because I don't see Derrick Lewis making it to the 25th minute. And then, if you want to sprinkle that sub line, I think it's just a little bit mispriced. Again, I'm not saying it's the definite way that he's going to win. I just think it's a little bit mispriced. And obviously, historically speaking, we haven't seen Blaydes complete a submission. But still, I think it's live given how dominant he should be here in the grappling realm. So I'm going Blaydes inside the distance. I feel like you're going to have similar sentiments. Let me know.
Yeah, okay. So honestly, yeah, you're right with the submission prop. Like it's worth a little bit of sprinkle, and specifically the head and arm choke. Like this is a great spot. You take the guy down. You love hanging out in half guard. It's like why not at some point grab the arm? But Blaydes fights similar to a GSP, fights similar to a lot of these guys that people will consider to be boring wrestler types. But he doesn't. He's not going to put himself at any type of disadvantage to go for a submission. He'll just chip away, work for a TKO. If the TKO doesn't materialize, he's comfortable with taking a decision victory. But that's why he has so many TKOs. Is it's one thing to just keep hammering away from the side. It's another thing to try to burn your arms out and try to get a hold of this guy and try to give him a chance to scramble out of this thing. Like I feel like he could be live for a submission, but if anything, I think he gets a job done via TKO. With Curtis Blaydes, man, I mean, the book's been written on him 10 times over. He's been taken down by 13 different guys in the UFC. And you can make the arguments of, the top level guys like the Daniel Cormiers that have taken down. It's like, man, he's been taken down by pretty much everybody. Ilir Latifi's taken him down. He's a natural 205er. Shamil Abdurakhimov, Victor Pesta, Jack May, Juan Potts. Like pretty much everybody that's wanted to take him down has taken him down. He shows a 52% takedown defense ratio. But here's the funny thing about that. He's got like a 20 fight pint size. And it's not a pint size portion. It's a 20 fight portion size to look at. 52%. That means he's giving up 1 for 2 takedowns. And with Curtis Blaydes, a guy that averages 7 takedowns, he had 14 against Alexander Volkov, who's a much better wrestler than Derrick Lewis is. He shot 25 takedown attempts in that fight. Then what does a 52% takedown defense do for you? I don't think so. But I agree with the 1.5, like a lot of people are saying. It's minus 190 right now. It was minus 185 last night. So you see a little more money still rolling in on it. But you mentioned, Derrick Lewis still does have that first round power, those big bombs. Here's the thing. Derrick Lewis is not a first round knockout guy. His wins, Alexei Olenek, that made it the second. Ilir Latifi decision. Blagoy Ivanov decision. Alexander Volkov, there was 11 seconds left in the third round. Francis Ngannou decision. Marcin Tybura, third round. Travis Brown was past the midway point of the second round. The Abdurakhimov fight was in the fourth round. Nelson by decision. And then he knocked out Gabriel Gonzaga in the first round in 2016. So 5 years ago, he knocked a guy out in the first round. But Derrick Lewis wins later. Derrick Lewis wins based on you getting tired, him getting on top of you, and ground and pounding you in the second or the third round. I don't think he goes out there and catches Curtis Blaydes the way a Francis Ngannou did. So if Blaydes does lose this fight, I don't think he loses it in the first round and a half. Meanwhile, what we're hoping is that Lewis is the one that's going to survive that first round and a half, because I think Blaydes is just going to be on top of him, suffocating him. But Blaydes doesn't really push a lot of these finishes. He finished Junior Dos Santos in the under 1.5. But beyond that, I mean, he's just taken a lot of guys down and just routinely held them down. But I do think that he's going to win this fight. I do think he takes this fight by TKO. I do think he takes this fight inside the distance. And lastly, I mean, if you're picking him to win at all, we talked about Lewis's wins, but these are Lewis's losses, right? Matt Mitrione knocked him out. Sean Jordan knocked him out. Mark Hunt knocked him out. Daniel Cormier choked him out. Junior Dos Santos knocked him out. Those are his 5 UFC losses. He's been finished inside the distance, all 5 of those UFC losses. Those 5 UFC losses are the legit guys. Matt Mitrione was a top contender. Sean Jordan was one of the best athletes I've seen in a long time. His fight career wasn't great, but just freakish athlete. Mark Hunt, who wants to fight Mark Hunt in his own backyard? 4th round fight. The guy's a Samoan legend. Just got power for days. Cormier is the world champion, and he's world champion caliber guy. Junior Dos Santos is a former world champion. Those are all understandable losses. But when he fights that caliber, he loses. He loses at some point inside the distance, usually by TKO. Curtis Blaydes is a top 3 guy. He's that caliber. He's going to finish him by TKO, just like those other guys did. The wins that he has are largely laughable. Outside of, he's got a win over Ngannou, boringest fight ever. He's got a last-second buzzer beater over Alexander Volkov. That's a credible win. But recently, he arguably robbed Ilir Latifi, a guy half his size that took him down at will. The Blagoy Ivanov fight, he wins a split decision in a terrible fight that he did not look good in. And the Alexei Olenek fight, it's like, man, you mentioned yourself, he was in a lot of shit. He was not looking good until he just survived the first round. And as we talked about a lot on this card, these first round guys, when they don't finish in the first round, when Minner doesn't finish in the first round, when Hawes doesn't finish in the first round, when Olenek doesn't finish in the first round, the game falls apart. Lewis wins in that kind of style. But Blaydes is just gonna ride him like a small pony and have his way. He's not gonna force the finish, but the finish is gonna come. It probably comes in the second or the third round. I think it hits the over 1.5, but I also think Blaydes wins. Blaydes wins inside the distance. Blaydes wins by TKO. And you could even sprinkle, like let's say you put a unit on Blaydes inside the distance, a half a unit on Blaydes by TKO, and you put a 0.1 of a unit on the Blaydes by submission, you're still covered. If he does get the submission, you're happy because he won inside the distance and he got the submission. If he gets the knockout, it doesn't matter. It was a small but it's such a juicy price tag that maybe, as we talked about, never say never. Just because you never knocked out a guy doesn't mean you can't knock out a guy. Just because you haven't submitted a guy doesn't mean you can't submit a guy. They've given him Derrick Lewis. This is a very winnable fight for him. This is 36-year-old Derrick Lewis as well. 2 fights left on his contract. You never really know where he's at. He's talked about retirement a few times in the past. There's a lot to like about Curtis Blaydes. It is heavyweights, mind you, but this has got heavyweight feel of Usman versus Burns. It's like, yeah, we could get chin checked early, but beyond that, we've got the wrestling, we've got the striking, we've got the length, we've got the cardio, we've got the experience, we've got all the other factors. How does the fight go? Dude, he does get chin checked, but he still gets the job done. And I see the same thing for Blaydes. People calling him chinny. It's like he lost to Francis Ngannou. And the first time his eye swelled shut. The doctor stopped. It wasn't like he got knocked out. His eye was done. And the second time, I'm not going to say early stoppage, but it wasn't out, but it's like
kind of let it go a little bit more.
It's Francis Ngannou. Yeah. That's a little bit different. People say like, dude, Derrick Lewis hits as hard. It's like, no, Francis hits you standing. You're out before you hit the ground. Lewis gets on top of you, and all of a sudden it's like, shit, is a 280-pound guy on top of me, and he bounces your head like a basketball off the canvas half a dozen times, and then you're out. Those are two different types of power, right? And so Blaydes hasn't dealt well with the first one, clean standing shot. Maybe that's what gets him, but he's not going to end up on his back against Derrick Lewis. So, yeah, I got Blaydes, and we're going to go inside the distance for this one.
Yeah, if you're a Lewis backer, it can't be encouraging to see how easily Alexei Oleinik was able to drag him to the ground. And if Blaydes does the same thing, I think we're going to get a much stiffer, level of offense coming from Blaydes than we did from Oleinik with just that scarf hold.